And we're live. Welcome everyone to another edition of Biz Bites Live. I'm Anthony McMahon, your host from the IT Psychiatrist, and my guest today is Melisa Shore, the business development, tripping over words already, business development manager for Ambit AI. Welcome, Melisa.
Thanks for having me, Ant. It's great to be here.
Great to have you here. So Ambit AI, I mean, AI is a very, very broad term, artificial intelligence. It means so much to so many people, but what's Ambit's focus when it comes to AI?
So Ambit's focus is on conversational AI, and in a very, very short, sharp statement, it's about solving the problem of customer service at scale. We all are customers of large businesses, and from time to time we need to ring those businesses. And I don't know about you, Ant, but how many times have you waited on hold for your utilities and telcos and the IRD and all those sorts of things?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how frustrating it is to spend 10 or 15 minutes on hold for a 30, 60 second problem or answer to a question that could have been dealt with so much quicker.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And as I say, we're all customers of these businesses, and I moved house last year. And I reckon I invested about 2 to 3 hours of being on hold with my telco. I used to drive home, 20-30 minute drive home from work, and just dial it up. Knew that I'd be on hold for the time, so it was a good use of my time. It wasn't until it was raining one day and the drive home took me 40 minutes that I actually got my call answered. And wow. So what Ambit does in terms of conversational AI is we help businesses solve the problem of what do your customers need to know from you, and what are the channels are they meeting you in, and giving them choice. Because we don't replace humans. We don't take away from the fact that humans need to have valuable conversations. But why can't we have conversational AI to have the less valuable conversations?
Absolutely, and it's taking some of that low value activity that people are doing today, but don't necessarily. It's transactional. It's repetitive and it's transactional, and it's moving that into an ecosystem that's automated to allow your staff to focus on the high value stuff, the stuff that's actually going to return investment for you, isn't it?
Yep, that's absolutely right. And I've spoken to a number of businesses that have been concerned that their staff would be worried about having a what we would call a digital employee coming online in their business, and the first impressions have been nothing but positive, because people are going, so I can actually solve a problem for our customers rather than changing their address or answering information about our opening hours, or those really basic questions. They're now viewing themselves as problem solvers.
Nice.
So yeah, really great attitude and view as to how these can, this sorts of technology can support businesses.
Nice. And I'm going to lead somewhere with this question as well. But so Ambit is focusing on conversational AI. Does it do any other automation? Does it do any other AI behind the scenes, or is it focusing purely on conversational?
It's focusing purely on conversational. We've built a conversational AI platform. And the exciting thing about that is the key part of what we do is conversation design, which we have the most experienced conversation designers in the country. But we're also enabling our customers to become their own conversation designers. And so our platform's a drag and drop code-free conversation design platform. So it's really easy to quickly change conversations as the mood of your customers change as well.
Love it. And that's great, because where I was leading with that question was, there is a perception amongst some people, not it's not wide or it's not total, but for some people AI is this big overarching beast that's going to take over everything, and there's a single AI. But what you're saying there is more like the reality that you have pockets of capabilities delivered by AI, where the focus for Ambit is to be really good at conversational. You're not worrying about cooking toast. You're not worrying about driving a car. You're not worrying about putting a man on the moon. It's just talking to people, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. and look, there is AI out there for cooking toast and putting men on the moon, and also for self-driving cars, but they aren't there to hold conversations with customers. So it's for many people, if we can break that viewpoint down to be that AI is a range of capabilities and not a singular capability, I think we're winning already.
Yes, and that's exactly right. AI has got a huge future in many avenues of business, health, how we interact with machines, but Ambit's focus is purely on how you as a business would be able to automate conversations with your customers.
Perfect. So if we talk about emerging technology for a little bit, AI is an emerging technology. There's been Bitcoin, there's been blockchain, there's been cryptocurrency and blockchain. We've heard a lot of hype about what emerging technology is going to do to the workforce, probably for the last 6,000 years. Everything we've ever seen that's come through is going to disrupt us in some way, and yet we're still working, we're still doing our job, we're still getting on and doing things. Why do you think it is that new tech doesn't actually completely disrupt the workforce? It tends to complement it.
We evolve as human beings. We've been part of an evolutionary process for thousands of years, and I don't see why we would stop doing that today. One of the things that that I've often said, we talk about automation and why a machine's going to take our jobs. Well, I don't know if you recall, but we used to manufacture cars in this country. And despite current events, prior to current events, we had, the lowest unemployment we've had, and the economy's been going very well. So automation has not taken away our jobs. They have allowed us to be creative and find new jobs. And to the point that I have a 10 and a 13-year-old, they've got their schooling's been a new school, which is quite innovative. And they make it very, very clear that they are teaching the children on how they will survive in a world where we don't know what the jobs are going to be. They're not going to be traditional jobs. It's critical thinking, it's problem solving, and that's how we're evolving.
Nice. And you're right, the jobs of the future, we're going to see more and more shift to the knowledge economy. I mean, knowledge workers they were a fantastical idea 50 or 60 years ago, and now the bulk of the workforce that we interact with, at least, I won't say everyone's a knowledge worker, but most of the people I deal with are knowledge workers. They are doing stuff that is going to require more critical analysis and more deep thought than that can't necessarily be automated.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And so automation goes so far, and if it goes further, we'll find other ways to move with it. And that's just the nature of what we do. Definitely.
And yeah. I think your point about we evolve is spot on. I often talk about automation from the view that it's not a modern thing. It's not a modern construct. I hear RPA vendors, robotic process automation vendors, sit there and say that RPA is the next big thing, and it's been in the market for 5 or 6 years. I actually call them into task on that one, because the first robotic process automation was about 300 years ago when the French created the first weaving loom, the first automated weaving loom. So it's not new, and yet we're still working harder than we ever have. So
yeah. And I mean, RPA is an exciting sort of way to manage business as well. Especially when you look at the platforms that businesses use, and they don't talk to each other. And so how do you service your customers and service them well? Nobody wants to go and build a whole new platform to house all of their customer data. It doesn't give you ROI. You can spend millions of dollars on it. So RPA is fantastic to be able to pull data together to service customers. And one of the things that we talk about with regard to how conversational AI works with RPA is like the back end digital employee, and conversational AI is the front end digital employee.
Absolutely. And what it all hinges on within there is not just that back end front end, but good data makes automation so much faster, so much more effective, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it absolutely does.
have you, how many times have you sat down with clients or with prospective clients and had to address with them the first point that their data is where the work needs to be, that putting a conversational interface in front of that isn't going to work if they've got bad information to start with?
We don't go that deep at the early stages. So one of the things that I guess a misconception in terms of conversational AI and how businesses kick off is if you are looking at the richness of your data in terms of the conversational employee at the early stages, you're probably trying to solve the world at the outset. Yep. Whereas actually the best thing you can do with conversational AI is to even conversationalize your top 10 queries or your top 20 queries, because what you want to do is have adoption with your customers of using a digital employee to access information. And once you've got that started, then you sit back and you listen to what your customers are talking to you about. And that will form what you want to do in the future with data integrations, with more valuable conversations based on personalization of accounts. And, we find that all of the customers that we have, they've started small. They've sit back, they listen to their customers, that forms their future conversation building, and it also forms what back-end integrations you might be looking at. So what data you want to feed to them and how you want to feed it to them to ensure that you're meeting their needs.
Nice. And it's a great point in there is don't boil the ocean at the start. Start small and grow to a point and have a plan in place as well as to what each phase is going to look like, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But listen to your customers, because they are really honest when it comes to talking to digital employees. And, yeah. Sorry,
you go.
Oh, one of our customers, one of their top 5 questions they receive from their customers, they never have ever been asked it before. So, of course, they were able to adapt and build a conversation stream into their digital employee to manage it. So that's been amazing for them to sort of understand more about how their customers think and what they need from them.
Without going into the detail, do you think that there's a few factors at work in there? That one, some staff are more, or some people rather than staff are more inclined to talk freely when it's not another human, and in other cases, the interaction with a conversational AI tends to be more over time rather than. And my camera's just stopped. I'm just going to fix that in a moment. But to finish the point, tends to be more over time. It's not in the moment. So instead of back and forth that you get with an agent on the phone, when someone says, "How can I?" when a bot says, "How can I help?" You've got a little bit more time to think about it. Do you think there's a few factors going on in there that leads to that?
Yes, there certainly are. As you say, you've got a little bit of time to respond is quite likely one of them. It's a zero judgment channel as well. So people do believe that there's no such thing as a stupid question, basically, when you're in a judgment-free environment. And of course, we get the other side of it, where they're often brutally honest when things aren't going well. And we can train our digital employees if picks up on swear words and will respond basically however your brand is. If you're fun and quirky, you might go, wash your mouth out. If you're a bit more serious, you might say, please don't speak to me like that.
Yeah.
And, our customers have a lot of fun with the character and the personality of their digital employees.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the questions on a board day have ended up asking Google, or with a 4-year-old who knows that you can ask Google things, where he's encouraging me to ask certain questions of the phone. We get used to playing around, so we will be a little bit more relaxed with that environment and that interface because we're familiar with it anyway.
Yeah.
But if I just come back, you talked about honesty, and there's an element in there that honesty goes both ways, doesn't it? It's better to be honest with a customer that they're dealing with a conversational platform than to try and fool them into thinking they're dealing with a real human.
Oh, absolutely. Like we, very rarely have we spoken to anybody that has tried to fool a customer to think that they're speaking to a real human. I've had one scenario sort of 18 months ago where somebody had piloted, it was an Australian company, and they piloted a chatbot, and apparently there was a few high fives that they managed to fool people to think it was a real human. It makes me cringe. It really does make me cringe. Always be honest. Yeah. And have a really good escalation path as well through your conversation. If your digital employee is, a really smart sort of teenager or child that knows a lot about the topics it's been trained in, but they don't know everything. And so, failing gracefully and ensuring in the conversation design that you give a really quick escalation point so that you're not frustrating your customers if you can't answer what they're looking for.
Definitely. And that escalation point, slightly different too, but fits into the realm of controls that you want to have in place. You don't want to end up replicating what Microsoft did with their Twitter bot a few years ago.
No.
Become a Nazi.
Yep. Play the Twitter bot. We all know that story.
Yep. Oh, and for anyone who's watching this who hasn't heard the story, just Google Tay and Twitter. Tay, Tay, Twitter. It's a lesson in how not to deliver AI capability, and why you need to have good controls in place as well.
Absolutely, and it's one of the things that we manage very well. All of our learning and training is supervised, so our bots will never say anything that it's not previously trained to say.
Yeah, perfect. And the training, the learned training, or the training learning, is where I've seen most AI successfully grow, is where you've got a little bit of failure demand on what it's going to learn next, as opposed to just trying to do natural language evolution in the moment.
Yeah. Another thing that we find that I talked about, listening to your customers as well. So from an Ambit perspective, we've just released Insights, which is just an enhanced analytics package within our platform. So, the deep dive now into what your customers are talking about is delivering the most amazing insights to our customers now. The feedback in less than a week has been mind-blowing. So, it really gives you the opportunity to understand the mood of your customers and how you can help them.
Definitely. And I'm just bouncing on and off mute at the moment because it's raining a little bit where I am. So if anyone can hear some staticky background noise, it's probably rain on the window. And so, right, it's for any customer facing technology. It's not just conversational. Any technology you're delivering, you should be delivering to solve a customer problem, and therefore listening and talking to what your customer wants, rather than just assuming that you're dealing with everything.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. We've got, a large number of our customers are essential services at the moment. So, we've got one of our customers that are now 20% of the conversations that they're having are asking around, are you able to deliver? Are you an essential service? How are you impacted by COVID-19? So, we've been able to build conversations into their platforms within days of lockdown and when they got to reopen as an essential service. So, it's an exciting time for those that are operating in the space and have conversational AI in their business.
Nice. And that's a way for some of the other businesses out there that I've come across through the last 2-3 weeks to address the problems they've got as well. I know of one courier company who has been, they're deemed essential because they do delivery and logistics, but they're only limited to a certain amount of things of what they can deliver, and they can only deliver essential supplies for other businesses, so medical, some of the manufacturing organizations, which are part of this value chain of essential. And what they've been dealing with is companies or their clients coming through going, well, you need to move our stuff because we're essential, and the courier company's going, well, no, you've got to figure out a way to get around that because you're not part of our essential bubble. It's quite convoluted. But a conversational bot can help with that because it can actually solve that. Will you deliver this? No, we can't. And provide that context rather than taking up valuable human time in doing it.
That's exactly right. And, they'll have a limited number of staff that are trying to manage the customers that they can deliver for. and ensuring that, they're dealing with their queries, their pickups, their drop-offs, and all of those sorts of things. And, people just going, will you deliver this? You're right, it's just taking up valuable time that can be spent elsewhere.
Definitely. And I think we're going to see that change happening a little bit more, as well as that people realize, or businesses start to realize, that they can't rely on others to do things for them. You can outsource a lot, but you can't outsource everything. And right now, while you might be selling an essential good, it might not fit into someone else's bubble. So there's other tech solutions out there that will help solve some of these problems. And there's also non-technical solutions that will solve these problems as well.
Yeah. And always will be.
Yeah. So just to wrap up, Melisa, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to find out more about Ambit and what Ambit AI delivers from a conversational layer?
Yeah, well, probably the best place to go would be to jump into our website. So ambit-ai.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. So Melisa Shore. So hunt me down and drop me a message, and more than happy to have a chat to anyone who wants to find out more.
Perfect. It's ambit-ai.com, and you've got customers from across the every industry, small, medium, and large, and outside of New Zealand as well, haven't you?
That's right. We're mainly New Zealand, so we're a New Zealand homegrown business. All of our staff are based in New Zealand. Well, the majority of our staff are based in New Zealand. But yes, we, from retail to utilities, telcos, financial services. And, they're usually the ones with the largest customer bases. And so, it's really about scaling their customer service. But we've also got lots of smaller businesses as well, from mortgage companies to tax financing companies that are a lot smaller, that just see that the channels that they need to meet their customers in is changing, and they want to be prepared for it.
Nice. Well, we'll put the link to Ambit's website in the comments for this as well, and in the description on the YouTube channel if you're watching through that. But Melisa, thanks very much for your time today. Really appreciate it. It's been really good talking about AI in general, but also specifically some of the problems you can solve with conversational AI. Thanks for having me, Ant. It's been great. Not a problem, and all the best. We will catch up once we can finally get out of lockdown.
Sounds good.